So, another guitar build. I had so much fun doing the first one, I thought I'd do another one. And I've lucked into a really nice bit of mahogany. Got a one-piece mahogany body blank. And it's got lovely grain. I thought it was actually a two-piece because they didn't actually say it was one-piece when I bought it. But it's a one-piece mahogany body blank and it's lovely. Now, just to be different, I've got a figured cherry neck blank that's quarter sawn. It's not very often used on guitars, but it's very nicely resonant. Got some nice figuring. The grain's really nice as well. There's a knot here. You see the grain is a bit off there, but I can avoid that, and I'll probably end up cutting that out anyway. Got a maple fretboard with some nice grain, and because it worked so well last time, I'm going to use another bit of Purpleheart between the cherry and the maple, and it's ended up being a very resonant, very strong, very stable neck. So it's going to make a very nice body. Slightly thinner again than a standard blank. This is 39mm rather than 44. But yeah, I'm going to make a mahogany Strat, which is going to be interesting. I've glued the Purpleheart onto the cherry, which is still nice and resonant. And now it's time to route the truss rod slot. And I've got a 1/4 inch cutter, which is exactly the same size as the truss rod. And I've set this so that the centre line of this is parallel to the edge of that, so I can use the edge guide on my router to route the slot. I've now routed the truss rod channel, and it's worked very nicely. The truss rod slots in very neatly. Very little spare space around that. That's worked very nicely. The next thing to do is to route the headstock down by 3mm, and then I'm going to put my triangle of Purpleheart on before then further routing the headstock down another 6mm to get the string break angle over the nut. Very nicely resonant. This is the jig I've got set up to route down the headstock. So I've got the neck clamped in the table. I've got some pieces of maple stuck to the table either side, with the router on this board of laminate to run along here, and then I'm using this bit as my depth stop to stop it at the point of the Purpleheart, and that will let me route the headstock down to the same depth. So I've taken the headstock down by 3mm, apart from this bit which is being cut off anyway. And I've cut my triangle of Purpleheart, which I'm going to glue onto there to reinforce this bit of the neck, which is the weakest. And that will make that a lot stronger and stiffer. Now I've routed the truss rod access hole, and I've ordered a long drill bit to then cut through to there. The next thing to do is to take the neck thickness down using the router to the thickness of the template. So I'm going to leave a rail on either side for the router to run on, and then route out the thickness in the middle until I get down to the thickness I want, and then that's the nut line, and that's the bit of the template where it gets thicker, where it joins the body. I'm now taking the back of the neck down to close to the right thickness. Unfortunately, this blank wasn't entirely flat. It's slightly thicker at this end than it is at this end, So what I've had to do is take that down and then take this bit down a bit further, and then I'm going to have to try and blend it in. That shouldn't be too difficult. The next thing to do now is to rough cut the shape of the neck on the jigsaw before I then route it to the exact size on the template. Very nicely resonant. This is my jig to thickness the headstock. So I've got a flat board on top of the bench with the neck clamped down here, and I've got a bit of maple either side with the router stuck to this board using the superglue masking tape trick, and that will allow me to take the headstock down to the 14mm thickness that's required. So I'm now cutting the excess off the neck using the bandsaw, not bandsaw, jigsaw, that's wishful thinking there. And I've put some MDF underneath it to stop it rocking because I've already taken the back of the neck down. And the cherry cuts quite nicely. This is my rig for routing the neck flat, this sort of depth, width, something or other. So I've got the template superglued to the neck with a similar thickness of various bits and pieces on the other side to run the router. And it's cutting very nicely. So I've now finished shaping the neck using the template as a router template. Got my top loop finished here. I've got the pilot holes for the tuners drilled. I'm just making my cover for the top of the truss rod, and then it'll be time to glue the fretboard on. So here's the truss rod installed with my maple cover here and my little plug at the end, so it's very snug, no movement, and that will reinforce the top there and stop any glue getting down into the mechanism. Next thing to do is glue the fretboard on. Indexing holes for the pins on both the fretboard and the neck, and now it's just a matter of clamping it on and gluing it up. So I've got the fretboard glued on and clamped up, got a good squeeze out all round. It's looking good. So the fretboard went on very nicely, it's looking good, quite interesting grain just there. And now I'm going to finalise the headstock shape on the jigsaw table. So now I'm going to start shaping the neck using the faceting technique. So you have a centre line down the middle, you put a line 5mm either side at this end, 10mm either side at this end, and then you put a line 2/3 of the way down the side of the neck, and you join the two, and then you just keep producing facets, and it's a really good way of shaping a neck quite quickly. And you can see you're left with these ridges which will now blend in, and it leaves a nice neck shape. After a lot of sanding, I've got my neck nicely shaped, and you can start to see the figure in the cherry, which is going to come out very nicely, I think, once it's been oiled. I've got blended it into the headstock with the volute to match the top loop, and I've blended it into the heel, and it's lovely and resonant. So it's looking good. Next thing to do is start on the body.